Alright guys, I'm about to take the Pitster Pro xr250 to do its first off-road duty. That's right, I'm taking this to the trail. I'm going to ride it on the road to the trail, and then I'm going to test it out. I have not ridden this thing off-road, and I've ridden it on the road. It's pretty decent. It's a very good bike. For what you get, this thing is quite good, but I don't know how well it does off-road. So the first thing we're going to do is fill it up with gas, and then we're going to head to the trail. So let's go ahead and do that. On the road, this bike feels absolutely tiny. But one thing, because of the knobbies, the worst thing is that getting to trails, especially if you have to ride just for a bit, it does wear out your knobbies quite fast. So I don't recommend this sort of tire for riding on the road. And actually, as a dual sport tire, a knobby like it has is not recommended. 78, 379, not one. Is that the speedo should be facing a little bit more this way, because it's very difficult to see. On video it might not be much, but it just seems kind of odd that it's completely almost flat and level on the bike. But in reality, it should be facing you a little bit. Every single dash that you see on bikes has that. And here's our first off-road, and of course you should stand up on this, and the grips are kind of sliding around a bit. The bike seems to be okay for off-road. This is going to be a little bit tougher. Now I've made it up here on my scooter, and this is kind of like deep sand, which is kind of odd for the East Coast. And you see like these big chunky things here. We're going to go right up on them. So there we go. And it's rocky. Oh my god, it's so... And I stalled it in the middle of the... My god, I stalled it here. I've actually have gone up on my scooter without stalling it ever. But the bike, I think I was in third gear, so not exactly a great start. See Modelers Park, so you can fly remote control airplanes here. At one point I did climb these when I had more practice on my dirt bike, but I really don't feel like I'm good enough to do this. My inexperience is really what's causing the wobbliness, but the more weight I transfer to the foot pegs, of course, the more it seems to steer, and steer better. So that's kind of good. Just idling along, it feels pretty good. So once you get up here, you can notice that a lot of people have just been throwing trash everywhere. This used to be very fun to ride back in the day, but the problem is that the police have started cracking down, and I don't know, I think a lot of people have been kind of messing it up for a lot of people. But very sandy. It's kind of weird that you find sand in this area, but it's very like, it's not bad actually. When you give it gas, it actually works out kind of well. So I think I'm just like a little bit too afraid. Here's a trail that goes inside the woods there. Oh man, there's a bunch of like cars here. That's kind of fun. I think that's why I like the scooter nature of riding, especially around the DC area where there's very few places to ride, is that you can kind of be a little bit stealthier, but people hear you riding this thing around. On a scooter, it's like you can be stealthy, you know. And when you get off the trail, it's like, oh, it's just a scooter. Yeah, he's commuting to work. But on this thing, it sounds like a 450. It doesn't really matter that it's a 250, you know. Nobody really cares. It just feels like you're breaking the law. At least that's the way I feel. Look at that. Yeah, I think I need to get a dirt bike just because, you know, I like riding, but the problem is that in the DC area, I'm very paranoid about getting arrested because it seems like some people don't really care, but I don't know, it just kind of feels that I'm always a little bit on the paranoid side. You know, this bike feels pretty darn good when you're riding. It actually doesn't feel bad at all, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of neat that they have developed some big fire roads here, and I wonder if they're going to develop some sort of area. Look at that. I mean, this has got trails everywhere. So I'm going to go this way. I got a tree stuck to me. Look at this. Put it on neutral. Whoa. I think my chain cover just broke off. Look at this. Oh my god. Yeah. Chain just broke off. Wow. Okay. Let's go this way. This is a little bit more open. This at one point used to be completely flat. People would come here with all sorts of bikes and ride around. I think the last time I came was in winter on my Yamaha C3. I don't see anybody. If I was a very talented dirt rider, I might try this on the... Ooh, very wet over there. I might try this on the Super 10 Ray. Alright, let's see this thing. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm not used to it, but this bike does have plenty of torque to go up on all of these hills, so. Very easy to climb up. This little Chinese bike does so well, and now I'm getting a little bit more comfortable standing on the pegs, so it feels a lot better. You know, it is a workout. I think that's why I like the dirt aspect of riding. It's very physical. Of course, not as physical as riding a mountain bike, but I mean, it's still a workout. This area has just got like a lot of weird variety, including deep sand. And we're on the East Coast. I don't know how well this bike would do in the West Coast because you need a lot more power, like an XR250R, but I don't know, I kind of feel like it's a very good bike with a little bit more practice, and if I got in the habit of standing up, I think I could do much better as a rider. But I don't know, like around here it seems like it's a very good bike. You know, I don't know enough about dirt bikes to really say something definitive, but so this is a little bit hard for somebody like me, and yeah, I think I'm kind of getting back my dirt legs. I kind of understand it a little bit more. I used to ride often, and it just became one of those things that street riding is a whole lot easier. It's easier to kind of get in, get out, go to your thing. You can ride and just get off and go have a cup of coffee. But dirt riding, you know, it's a whole lot more pure. You have to really know your stuff. And yeah, my first little experience riding dirt on the Pitster, I'm actually very surprised. It's very fun. It's a very fun bike to ride. Alright guys, let's clean this thing up. In the beginning I was worried about the front tire or the front suspension, but I think what's happening is that I'm simply not standing up you know, too much. And also you have to like ride faster. When you're riding dirt, it always feels like you're going too fast because you're looking at boulders right in front of you, and that's not the way you want to approach it. So how does this bike handle off-road? Look, now I'm kind of like trying to digest the ride. It was a very short ride, so I haven't gotten really a good sense, but I think it's the scooter life is a lot easier. And what I like about the scooters is that you can get in and out. It's healthy, they're quiet. This looks like a dirt bike. It doesn't really matter that it's a 250. Nobody cares. Everybody goes like, oh shoot, it's breaking the law, it's trespassing. But it handles pretty well. In the beginning I was riding too carefully, and on these type of bikes you have to give it gas. And I've ridden quite a bit off-road. I've gotten fairly good, but because I haven't ridden in such a long time, I kind of go back to the new status. But for these bikes, you just got to give it gas. Everything kind of corrects itself. You have to constantly be giving it gas. It's like when you're going into a corner on a motorcycle, you don't want to like abruptly slow down and then pick up the speed. You want to keep the momentum that the bike has. It's just kind of go up hills and move through corners. But when you're new, your instinct is to slow down and carefully pick your way around. So I think that's why I screwed up more in the beginning. Towards the end, I was getting it. You know, give it gas, keep the momentum going, and you'll be fine. The front end kind of like tracking a little bit odd. I think it's just because I'm sitting quite a bit. So I got this bike plenty dirty. So the first gravel ride was, I think, fairly good. I do want to ride it a little bit more. The chain guard broke off, so I'll have to get a new one. But in itself, the bike is extremely good. I mean, very simple bike, that's for sure. You would think it wouldn't be as good, but the suspension is quite good on it. I think it's so good that I'm not used to it, because usually the xr250Rs that I've ridden, they're very soft suspension. This almost feels like a race bike, suspended bike. And it's odd because it's an air-cooled engine, a very small engine, and I kind of like it a lot. I mean, look at it, tiny little engine. It is a Kickstarter, so it's a Kickstart CRF230, and with upside down forks and pretty decent rear suspension. The seat, I'm not exactly sure, but all of these dirt bike seats are very uncomfortable, and I think I need to be standing up more when I ride, but I did ride it a little bit and it feels pretty good. It's a very good bike. It feels good out on the trail. It's got good foot pegs. It's a little bit narrow, so a couple of times I was like putting my foot down and I kind of came off the peg. And of course it's got the rear racks for some serious dual sporting and travel. It would be nice to take this thing for a very large ride. Also, it's got a very large front rotor. A lot of the CRFs and stuff and XD225s, I was looking at an XD225 the other day. It had a drum rear brake. That's a disc rear brake, and a very large one to boot. I mean, when you look at that rear disc brake, it is very large. And I think the downside is that it's a Chinese bike. Doesn't feel Chinese. It feels like a very good Japanese bike from like the 90s, I think, with better suspension. It's got a steel frame, so it's not aluminum. Steel actually absorbs a lot of the vibration as opposed to aluminum. Aluminum is very stiff, but it's lighter. But often, if you break a steel frame, you can kind of modify it and weld it. It's a lot easier. It's very simple to get to the spark plugs. I think for my weight, I'd probably change a little bit of the stiffness of the suspension, but I'll probably just leave it like that. It's got a hydraulic clutch, but that's something that we added. It doesn't come standard. The airbox, of course, you have to remove the rear rack to access, which I do not like. You also put these plugs here, and I see now that they got close to the exhaust and melted. I'll have to fix that. But very, very nice bike. It would be nice if they had like a filter cartridge for the engine. That's what a lot of people have, so I don't understand why they didn't have that. But of course, it is an old engine. Like, it looks old. The casing looks old. The starter looks old, but very easy to access, it looks like. It's air cooled, so that's a downside for me. It's got a petcock, very simple. Like, you cannot get simpler than this bike. Look at this. Forbidden to drive by the children under the age of 14! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. I have not seen that ever. So I wonder why you can't ride this under the age of 14. What if you're a large 14-year-old? Airbox is kind of weird. I kind of wish that there was a way of modifying it, and I bet there's a better way to kind of like remove this and kind of modify the airbox. Very, very good bike. It's a very good bike. For what you get, this is a really decent bike to get started in the dual sport game. It's a lot more fun to ride this off-road than a street bike, I think. You definitely don't want to ride a Super Tenere off-road, right, Cooper? You don't want to ride it. Like, can you imagine dropping that thing off-road? This thing, it's light. I mean, this thing is just, I don't know the weight that it is, but it is a very light feeling bike. So yeah, guys, that is the Pitster. It's back home. I'm going to give it a good wash with the power washer, and that's pretty much it. We didn't do that many miles, maybe 17 miles off-road. I do plan on going there again because it is pretty darn fun, but I'm paranoid because off-roading around here means riding illegally. But then again, the cops have way too many things to do, right? So I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Kind of stuck here. The cops won't bother me.